You mentioned about the impact that Jordan B. Peterson and Tom Holland are having at the secular academic level among high-profile individuals with, for example, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship is an excellent case in point of how Christian thought leaders are coming in the West to shake things up. Now, one of the things that was striking me recurringly was when we look at the Christianity that Jordan Peterson and the others are embracing, it comes off as that they're embracing a cultural Christian version and not a full-on embracing of the gospel. Now, what is your assessment of what's happening there? Are they just being cultural Christians, or are you seeing an overwhelming move towards a full-on gospel embracement?
So I think this is another great question, and a lot of people were talking about this when Ayaan Hirsi Ali published her article, Why I'm a Christian. And because she talked at some length in the article about the dangers posed by fundamentalist Islam, other regimes like Russia, China, also the progressive left. And she was essentially saying we need something like Christianity to act as a kind of a bulwark against those. And so a lot of people accused her of embracing Christianity for these purely cultural, political reasons. I understand that, because obviously that has been a motivating factor in her journey. But at the same time, if you read the article carefully, you'll see that she also talks about the fact that she couldn't find the meaning she was looking for on an atheist worldview. It did not make sense of life for her. And if you watch some of the interviews she's done subsequently, she's talked about her own personal spiritual journey, feeling spiritually bankrupt, and eventually coming to the point where she persuaded herself, well, maybe I need to take a second look at Christianity, jump into that story. And so she's obviously on a journey. And I think it's a bit premature for Christians to say, well, she's not a real Christian, or for atheists to say that, because everyone is going to come to faith in different ways. There's going to be all kinds of mixed motives for why people eventually end up there. So I'm not prepared to kind of dismiss people, even if there is obviously a cultural, political dimension to their search. The same goes for Jordan Peterson. I think, when I had him on my show, I asked him more or less a direct question of, do you actually believe in God? And he did his usual thing of, well, it depends what you mean by God. And that can be frustrating, I think, for Christians, because they want a straight answer one way or the other. But actually, I think for him, it's obviously I think he doesn't want to get caught in a trap of just treating it like any other scientific, philosophical question. He needs to have a way of engaging with God that is more than just, I think, a kind of a set of premises, if you like. And so I don't want to be judge and jury over where he's at with his journey. What I do know is that I've certainly seen him in some interviews get very emotional about the person of Jesus. There's one particular conversation he had with Jonathan Peugeot where he talks about Jesus being this meeting place between the world of myth and imagination and the kind of objective world of history and fact, if you like, and that perhaps just in this one instance they really met in that person. And that's a very C.S. Lewis kind of journey, that he's describing there, if that's the one he's going on. Obviously, in the end, I don't think if it remains just a kind of useful fiction for people, if it's just about, asserting some kind of power and the values and so on, then of course it's deficient. It's not Christianity. It's just a political tool or a culturally useful thing. And I think that if that's all the movement is, it will fade away. It won't have any power. But I see enough evidence that actually there's some people who are maybe in that place, who are just treating it like we need something like Christianity for cultural reasons. But I also see a lot of people who are kind of wavering on the edge of jumping in. It's almost like they need somehow the intellectual permission to kind of say yes to this. And I also see people who have jumped in, so I tell a number of stories in the book and in the podcast of people who have said yes to this, who have jumped in. And yes, there's certainly going to be cultural and political kind of aspect to that, but I think they've genuinely realized they need God, they need Jesus to make sense of life. And so I'm very thankful for that, because I think it's a mixture is what I'm saying. And we will see, what comes out in the end in terms of those who are willing to surrender themselves to it and those maybe who aren't.